Today we talk about expectations and reflect back at the summer that was, right here on the PSD EdTech podcast.
Welcome to the PSD EdTech Coaches Podcast, a podcast for educators by educators that love to equip teachers, ponder, and discuss current issues and climate in education.
With your hosts, Dan Hauptman, Melissa Shields, Jeri Sloane, and Steve Stuckey. Welcome in. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you may be. I am Dan Hauptman, one of your instructional coaches in the Palmdale School District, with my co-hosts, Melissa Shields and Jeri Sloane. How are you guys doing today?
Doing well. Good. How are you?
I'm hanging in there, I'll tell you. You know, it's been a kind of a weird first, 4 weeks, going into our 5th week of school.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's just weird, very weird. I mean, if you had told me 3 years ago we were walking into COVID, if you had told me this year that we would have a day off because of a tropical storm,
Hurricane day.
I mean, holy moly! I mean, who comes up with these things? I don't even think there's movies that cover this. Steve Stuckey is not here today. He is still on assignment, retirement assignment.
A long
Forever
assignment.
But I have asked him to take a one-day hiatus from his assignment to come join us for our next episode. So I invited him, and he said he'd be more than happy to come out and do it. Hopefully the date works with his very busy schedule.
Is he offering him treats? Because
I'm sure. Well, I offered him time with his grandchild, so I'm sure that'll help too. But we talked briefly before we went on summer break about kind of our plans. I just want to know, how did you guys' summer plans pan out?
I don't even
Melissa?
remember what I had said I planned. I know I think I probably mentioned that we were going to go to Hawaii, and we did. We were there for a week. Had not planned on seeing the volcano, and then the day after we arrived, volcano erupted again. Kilauea erupted, so we thought, okay. So one of those days we got up at 2 a.m, headed over there, and so that we could see it in the dark, but didn't really need to because the level of the lava lake was high, so it was
Nice.
It was a really quite a sight to see.
Nice. I know the only time I've gotten to see the volcano is flying over it, going into Kauai, and you get to see it all lit up.
They flew over island.
We did.
Oh,
Yeah, it was actually a direct flight into Kauai, and we were able to fly right over it. And I shouldn't say over it, close enough that you could see the glowing. It was
wow.
very, very pretty at night. Yeah,
it's my favorite color. Volcanoes and sunsets.
your favorite color. Jeri, what'd you do over the summer?
I had a great time visiting kids and grandkids because they're all over the place. And also just enjoying our summer, at least in Acton. It felt really nice. And practice slowing down and focusing on one thing at a time.
Slowing down is always good.
It's a forever project, right?
Isn't that like the definition of living in Acton? It's like you have to slow down.
If you're doing it right, and yeah.
Because I know there's such a thing as Acton time, so that's why I'm asking that question.
Yep.
I know growing up there, we always used to joke around about Acton time. Oh, they're late. Yeah, it's Acton time.
Acton time.
Why-
The summers are like that, yeah.
Did you and how much time did you get to spend with the grands?
Oh, a week here and a week there.
Nice.
So, yeah.
I know you made your way all the way up to Georgia one day or 1 week,
Yeah.
and then
Or
back
is
up
it
north.
down to Georgia? I mean,
From where we are, I don't know. I'd have to look at the
devil's
map.
got a fiddle.
That's
I don't
true.
know.
That is true. That's a good point.
Wait a minute, but then if the devil goes down to Georgia,
That means he'd have to come up from.
I'll
Yeah,
just
come
stick
up
with
from
the
somewhere.
fiddling part and then move on.
So mine ended up being, I think I kind of briefly talked about it when we went on break about what my plan was, and ended up being a almost 5,200 mile trip.
wow.
Yeah, all the way to Georgia, speaking of Georgia, and then all the way back, and everything that was in between, as much as we could get in between. But I got to tell you, and this is where I love the fact we're on a teacher podcast. I can say this because they'll understand. The amount of museums that are out there and the amount of high quality museums that are out there is off the chart.
Wow.
It is. I mean, I think we in California, I think we kind of take for granted what we have here. But to actually, go in the middle of Kansas City and go see the World War I museum, trying to think of all the museums we got to see. That was the big one. That was awesome. You look at it from the outside and you think, yeah, it looks like a museum. It's cool. And then you get inside and you're like, wow, they did a really good job with it. So for all the teachers out there, when you get a chance, get out there and see museums outside of California.
I see Atlanta has some great ones too.
They do,
Civil
absolutely.
rights and-
Yeah.
What was your favorite place that you visited on your whole vacation? Because I know you went to a lot of places.
We did. That's a great question. I think the favorite thing that we did was we visited a place called the Blue Hole, and it's outside of it's actually in Santa Rosa, New Mexico. So the Blue Hole in New Mexico, you think, okay, you're out there in summer, 90 degrees, which is what it was. It was a cool day for them. But in the middle of this town of Santa Rosa, which looks like a movie, like a B movie type town, where you have one road that goes in, one road that goes out. Everything's closed up in the day because all the rest of the town is all working, and then at night they come back up and they open everything up and everything's good. But this place called the Blue Hole, it's literally a blue lake that's in the middle of this town, and it's 81 feet deep. It's about, I think they said, about 30 feet wide. And it's a natural lake, and it is a consistent 61 degrees. Even during the winter, when you think it would be maybe a little bit cooler, 61 degrees. Wow. It is crazy. And so we got
61 degrees is cold.
It's cold. I mean, that's probably a little bit chillier than the Pacific Ocean. I want to say Pacific Ocean is like 63
in California.
Yeah, and so for us to go into the Blue Hole, and you have a chance, they've got like rocks you can go jump in and dive in.
Like a mini Tahoe or something?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, and you look at this water, I mean, I kid you not, it's about as blue as any water I've ever seen.
Wow.
It was absolutely magnificent. So things to do, that was up there. The coolest place we went to was probably the World War I Museum. So they have, on the outside of that World War I Museum, they have this big tower that was built, I want to say, I'm going to get this completely wrong, probably in the 50s. It's a concrete tower, and you have a chance, you can get for $2, you can go climb up it and go to the very top, and you get to see, on one side, you can see Kansas City, Kansas, and on the other side of the tower, you can see Kansas City, Missouri. And you can walk around and you see both states for miles. That was a really cool thing. But then underneath, the way that they took care of the story of World War I thought was magnificent. The artifacts that they have there, the weaponry that they're showing off. You look at some of like the shells that the Allies were using, and then the Axis were using. I mean, you look at them and they're larger than some of the babies that were in there in strollers. I mean,
wow.
We talk about like a 360, I have a 357 at home, so it's a large bullet, but it's not powerful. They talk about them in centimeters, not in millimeters. So it was crazy, huge. I would have probably measured them in inches, not necessarily in centimeters. But anyway, that's all beside the point. Just very well done, very tastefully done. You get to see all the different uniforms that were worn from both sides of the war. And the timeline on it, and you get to see the timeline from everything before the United States joined the World War I, which is really cool too. Very so cool. Places to go, that was really cool. Things to do, definitely the Blue Hole. So if you're in the middle of the highway, I'm trying to remember which highway going towards the east for the 40, going east, and you're in the middle of nowhere, you're probably pretty close to the Blue Hole. Go jump in. It's free to go jump in. You have to pay for parking. But if you want to go see a really good museum, and the reason that World War I museum became so cool was that when we were in New Orleans for our conference, going to the World War II museum,
right, and
being able to see both of those and how well that was done as well. So teachers, get out there, get outside of California, and go see a really good museum. They're all out there. They're
Some
awesome.
of it's tax deductible.
That's right.
Oh, I was going to say, did you pull hey, do you give teachers a discount? Because sometimes
Every
they
place.
will. Sometimes they will, not always.
Sometimes they will. So I want to say that in World War I believe I was able to get in the tower for free, so I got a couple dollars off to do that. But the military museums like World War I, World War II, they really take care of their veterans and their active military, which I thought was really cool. So we have my dad there, who's a veteran, and so they took care of him while he was there, and everyone who works there is all retired military. So all the docents that are walking around and answering questions are all retired military, and so they have a place to go to work, and that was really cool.
That reminds me of how special the U.S. Constitution Museum is in Philadelphia, at which I felt very knowledgeable after walking out of there, and then all the people are all scholars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I can go on and on about our summer because it is the summer that was. And so now we got to look at what is to come for this school year. And so one of the things we get asked about all the time is how do teachers set expectations for students that are realistic? So I know, Melissa, you and I have had this conversation many times, and the three of us total have had this many, many times. What are your thoughts, Melissa, on student expectations?
You know, I was thinking about this. I know it's been a couple of years since I've been in the classroom, but they don't. When you're first becoming a teacher and you go through your teacher courses, they really don't, or at least they didn't when I got my credential, teach you how to manage your classroom. They don't really talk about. They teach you how to present the curriculum. They teach you different strategies, but they don't teach you really about classroom management and classroom, and classroom expectations. And it wasn't until I got into this district where I took, a long time ago, we had these things called comp classes. Mm-hmm. And that's when I learned things like seating charts, like how to arrange your desks for maximum participation, for maximum classroom management, all these things.
For PSD teachers today, that's similar to CHAMPS.
Right.
Is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't gone through the CHAMPS program, but I know that the comps was wonderful, wonderful class led by our Cammie Henderson, who she's now retired, and Linda Salisbury, and
Also retired.
and Helen Novak, who
Also retired.
It was
Yeah,
wonderful.
keep talking, Melissa.
Anyway, but it was a long time ago when
Once
I took
again,
it.
she's advertising CHAMPS.
Yeah. Right. So, but I'm just gonna read this little thing here that I did use ChatGPT AI for. Why would we do this? Why would we set up this? And we talk about expectations too in capturing kids' hearts.
Right.
So, but I'm just gonna read this little blurb. Setting expectations for students in a classroom is crucial for creating a positive and productive learning environment. Not only does it provide a framework for behavior and performance, but it also helps students understand what is required of them and how they can succeed academically and socially. This process involves communicating both academic and behavioral expectations clearly, and it's even more effective when teachers model these expectations themselves. So, and I think that's really key, is teachers modeling it. So
Absolutely.
Just before we even came in here to talk about this podcast, one of the points, and I can bring it up out of order, it doesn't matter, was organization. And it says teachers keep their materials in the classroom organized. So I've seen so many teachers who get, I won't say get upset, but they really want their kids to keep their desks empty. They don't want a bunch, not empty, but like their school books, what their supplies that they need, but they don't want a bunch of papers crammed in there and wrappers of things, and they don't like the kids having messy desks. I've seen teachers completely dump out desks onto the floor and say, all right, clean it up. Meanwhile, when you take a gander over at the teacher's desk, there are stacks of ungraded papers, and there's an old soda can, and there's, and it's like, and that's not the norm, but I mentioned that for me, for a long time, my desk was clean on back to school night, the first day of school, back to school night, and probably teacher conferences. Other than that, I knew what my stacks were, but really my desk was a hot mess. So I had no right having expectations of my kids keeping their desks in order when I myself did not do that.
So in other words, do as I say, don't do as I do. And I think when students see us saying one thing, but then we behave a different way, that has an impact on them, and it almost makes them think like, why should I listen to him or her?
Right.
When I'm not, when they're not doing what they're asking me to do.
Yeah.
I know, and I realize we're not talking, keeping our desks, squeaky clean, but if it's an expectation of your students, then we need to hold that same expectation for ourselves as models in the classroom.
Credibility is a big deal in teaching, and one thing I've noticed through the years, whether it's parenting or teaching, everything you do is an example. It's either a good one or a bad one. Mm-hmm. So you're being watched, and that modeling is probably number one in the effect that you have on those around you.
Exactly. So, like, for example, how you talk to kids and how you want kids to talk to you, how you want them to talk to each other, right? We talk about academic language, but we also talk about things like saying please and thank you. I'm sure, if we really take the time to evaluate ourselves, are we saying, hey, Jimmy, can you hand me that paper, please?
Melissa, sit down. Oh,
right? So
Not
but do you
cool.
want your kids to talk to you like that? I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want my students to talk to each other that way. Why would I talk to students that way?
it's hard not to sometimes, but if you can
And I get.
stop, yeah.
I mean,
because
I get it.
now they're gonna be rude with you and sharp with each other. So yeah.
Right. But if we expect it, then we should, I remember we were talking about this the other day. I remember when years and years ago. So I only taught fourth grade 1 year. After that, it was all middle school. I learned my lesson. I need to be in middle school. But when I taught fourth grade, we did have to teach. There's certain things you have to teach the language standards and whatnot. Right. And so one of them was like how to write a letter, dear sir or madam, and you have your greeting. How are you? I hope this letter finds you, and blah blah blah. And we were teaching those things. And now with the advent of email and people sending messages, it's still really nice to receive a message that says, and we want to teach our students, especially in digital citizenship, hello, good morning, so and so. I hope you've had a pleasant weekend, and blah blah blah, and then go on, as opposed to, I didn't turn in my homework last night, or I couldn't do my homework last night. Not a hello, Mrs. Stevens, or but just I didn't do we don't want our students to just start in with the thing. But how many of us as adults will send an email off and just say, did you do the thing? Yeah. Not a good morning, good afternoon, but did you do the thing that we talked about last week?
Students may not see your emails, but you're still setting a tone. And maybe instead of friendly letter writing, which we do in the lower grades, it should be friendly email writing. We should just reword it.
Well, I know one of the things I used to do when and again, we're dealing with fifth graders, so it's a little bit easier for me to be a little bit more blunt with them. But they would come right in and they would start right in on I didn't get my paper back, or whatever the case may be, or first thing in the morning, I didn't get my milk. Good morning, Mr. Hauptman. I didn't get my milk today. And then the student would look at me kind of sheepishly. Good morning, Mr. Hauptman. I didn't get my milk this morning. So I modeled with the way that they needed to behave in those situations. And I think that the students are always watching. They're always watching what we're doing. If we're out on recess and we're chit-chatting with our partner teachers, and don't get me wrong, there were times where, those conversations need to happen because we need to find out what's going on for the rest of the day. But they're watching those things. So when they're supposed to be in line and quiet, waiting for instruction, they're following the model of, well, they were chit-chatting during recess. Why am I not? How come I can't do that? Again,
or like fire drills.
During
fire drills.
Absolutely. And again, I'm going to reiterate this to everyone again, is that we understand things happen and you need to have communication. Absolutely. Because it's not like we have as much time pick up a telephone and start talking to the teacher next to us to find out where we're going. But we do need to make sure that the things that we complain about that students are doing, we are not doing ourselves. I think we're doing a disservice when we are being that example. So we need to make sure we're reinforcing the good stuff.
When we think that, there's not really a lot of time for that, what are we teaching our kids? What do we want them to walk out of our classrooms with at the end of the year? The soft skills are going to last them a lifetime versus, those things, they're going to have to relearn some of those times tables, at least I do. But the politeness is going to take them far in life, really.
Yeah.
Or, a lot of, and some teachers complain that their students don't have empathy for each other. Well, are you showing empathy for your kids? That's important. That's where they get that example. They don't get to see that anywhere else but at school. Maybe on a ball field somewhere, maybe with cousins coming over, but people act differently with each other in different situations. We have a unique opportunity in the classroom to really show how people are supposed to be treated, how people are supposed to act. And we are the ones that the students are looking towards because we are with them almost as much as their parents are during the week, sometimes more.
We can lecture and all that, but if they don't have a vision of what it looks like, then it's not going to matter how much we train them in direct instruction on that.
That's true.
Yeah. And for some people, like, for example, empathy, for some people it comes naturally. And for some people, you can't just say, well, I'm not like that. So, we're teachers, we're adults, we're educated people. We can learn how to behave with empathy. And so something as simple as when you see a kid is about to have a meltdown, just reflecting their feelings. You don't have to feel what they're feeling, which is like kind of what empathy is, but you can acknowledge and say, wow, you look like you are really frustrated right now. And you could be wrong, right? They may not be frustrated. They might be mad. But if I come to a child and say, wow, you look like you're really frustrated, if they know what the word means, they might say, no, I'm not frustrated, I'm just mad. Then they're at least being able to express their feelings and knowing that their thoughts or opinions are valuable, and that's going to really go a long way for developing that classroom climate,
But also being open. And when you start that year off, you're beginning a new family.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's expectations for that family, and there's social contracts that everyone is supposed to follow, not just the students. That's supposed to be everybody. So we need to make sure that we are, in all situations, following that social contract and making sure we are being the best example for our students, even if it is something as simple as, I'm typing out an email to Dan today, and I know it's really important that I get Footsteps to Brilliance working, but there's still that niceness.
Good morning, Dan.
Yeah.
How are you today?
We need to practice that so that way it's in our everyday and not just, oh shoot, I really should have, started off with a good morning. In fact, it's always fun whenever I get one of those emails, and then I get a separate email back. Good morning, Dan. Because they realize, I think, we understand things happen throughout the day.
Slowing down's hard, man.
It really is, as we said.
We go back to the slowing
That's
down.
right. It goes back to slowing down. But what's the Ferris Bueller line? Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around, you'll miss it. That's kind of what we need to do. And if we're not stopping and looking around at what our students are doing, how they're acting, where they're getting that example from, it's not always from us, but we are the primary example that they get throughout the day.
So if everybody freaks out because you're not on your master's schedule, remember, you're modeling for your students.
Oh yeah.
Try to be punctual, but...
Yeah. We mentioned this when we had our Chromebook Academy the other day. And again, I'm going to go back to the comps class, because the one thing that I heard that really just I was there for 8 weeks, but the one thing that stood out to me the most was they said, hey, look, you don't have to do all the things. You only have the students practice the things you want them to be able to do. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay. Yes. If I want them to walk out into the field in a nice and calm manner during a fire drill, we have to practice it. How else are they going to know if you don't practice it and give them a chance? Because we don't know what they come from at home. They may have all the rules at home. They may have no rules at home. And so that's what they're bringing to us, but we have to show them what it needs to look like. And we can't say, well, it's common sense. They're fourth graders now. They should know blah, blah, blah. Maybe they don't, And one thing that as a middle school teacher that kind of stuck up to me was if my students, because it's in seventh grade, they have opinions. Boy, do they have opinions, and they're going to express their opinions. Do our students know how to express their differing opinions from what the teacher may have in a respectful manner?
Accountable talk, sentence stems on your wall.
Yeah.
Right. So can they say to me,
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying, but I'm just going to have to disagree with you because, it would be nice if our students knew how to do that, as opposed to, you don't listen to me, you're never paying attention, you know what I mean? And so having them be able to, but they have to learn it. You have to practice it.
And that's where, when you are having student interaction with your lessons and they are sharing, and you thank them for their opinion or for their thoughts.
Even if it opposes yours.
Even if it opposes yours. And, Jeri, I totally see what you're talking about. Thank you for sharing that with the class. Melissa, what do you think? Those types of things are the modeling that we need to do with our students, because they see that you value others as they talk.
So are you trying to say that we support more communication and collaboration in the classroom?
And critical thinking and creativity.
Which will allow for freedom of creativity.
I'll tell you.
But it's true. I mean, they all of their behaviors a lot of times come down to how we respond. And so if they act one way and they see us react that way, they're going to continue to do it because they know they've got us.
The one thing that my family did that made me who I am is my parents and their friends would say, "What do you think, Jeri?" When I was 9.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, okay.
Right. And there's some people, like my wife would say, she was raised up in a household that kids were not to be seen or heard. They were just there. And so she got all of her ways of behaving and with chit-chatting with other people by having conversation with teachers, with their peers, and having something structured. That was not something that was set up in her household, so she had to learn that in public where that was.
Husband either, which is why he will never be a teacher. He's clear on that too.
So, and the other thing, and I know you've talked about this, and I know you put this in the notes today as well, is schedule. Adhering to a schedule can be very peaceful for students. What do you think about that?
Well, I think you were talking about, Jeri was
Or
talking
maybe
about
it's Jeri,
schedule.
Yeah, those guardrails, those expectations give students a chance to be who they are, be creative, because they feel calm and centered when they know what's expected of them. So it's kind of like having a schedule, which we all know kids need. They also have the expectation, just a few, it's not 50, just enough so that they feel, okay, teacher's got this. I can go ahead and be myself and explore my learning and my metacognition or my creativity, whatever it is, because I know what the expectations are. They feel free.
That's a lot of, and I know teachers are probably tired of us talking about EDU protocols, but having those EDU protocols where they have those guidelines and they don't need to worry about leaving those guidelines because they know exactly what the expectation is. I think a lot of it comes down to expectation.
Yeah.
From both the students and from the teachers. And I shouldn't just say teachers, I should say adults, because I know there's other adults on campus that can also be viewed as role models as well.
What is that new word, that buzzword that we like to use now? Learning intentions?
Yeah.
Same idea, really. It's like, okay, this is what we're doing. This is what I'm looking for, and then go ahead and do it. Now you can explore.
Yeah, and again, not to harp on the EDU protocols, but I mean, if they, you just can't help it. But if they know what they're supposed to do, and you bring it to them, okay, guys, today we're going to do a Freire, blah, blah. They're ready to start the learning because they already know how they're going to do the learning. They just want the actual learning because then they can, plug it in. It's like a plug and play, right?
Yep.
And they're ready to go. So they're ready to start learning. You get those expectations. So I would just encourage teachers to kind of take a look at what is really important to you in your classroom and your classroom environment. Take a look at what is important. If it's important, have them practice it. If it's how they talk to each other, have them practice that. And I know like you said, we're 5 weeks in. It's not too late.
Never too late.
It's not too late. I've had to do resets at Christmas, so it's not too late.
And then a few things you may have to let go.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I can't do
Is this important? Is that the hill you want to die on?
Like,
right?
all right, we're
very
going to
true.
leave this one and we're going to go with these.
That's very true. Setting those expectations. Before we had social contracts, I had one rule in my classroom that was high expectations, mutual respect. I had high expectations in many areas for the kids, academically, behaviorally, and the expectation was that you will mutually respect everybody at the school, everyone in the classroom, and you will talk to them in that manner. And we practiced that. We had to.
And respect yourself.
And that was part of it as well. It's not just the people around you. You have to be sure you can't be self-deprecating, is that what they say?
Yeah.
You can't be sitting there talking bad about yourself when things don't go well.
Or not learning.
And you know what, teachers, and I know it sounds like we're harping on teachers, and we totally understand it is hard right now in the classroom. It's going to be hard for many years to come. There is no magic silver bullet.
No.
But just be open to feedback. And feedback is huge when it's time for evals, when it's time for parent conferences, when it's time to have student-teacher conferences. Be open to that feedback that you're getting from the other side. Because remember, we're not looking in a mirror all the time. We're not watching ourselves on film all the time with what we're doing in the classroom. Be open to the feedback that you receive. And if you're not reflecting daily, then you need to really start reflecting on how things went daily.
I always got so defensive, even though I was reflective, so defensive. And now at my ripe old age, I'm starting to realize that it's just not how I'm going to be a better person. I want to be better. But if I'm going to get defensive anytime I get feedback, that's just not going to work. So it's hard.
I think you can argue that you actually take a step backward when you get defensive over feedback.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, if they're attacking, that's a different story. But if we're talking about just feedback, then there's no reason. That should be something that you can use to move forward, not backward.
Really uncomfortable, but discomfort creates learning and forward progress.
Absolutely.
It's hard.
Absolutely. And so I know we can talk about this for hours and hours upon hours, but you know, we want good expectations for the kids, and we know you guys do too. But it's good things. I think we see good things when we get to go into classrooms, so and we just want to see that continue. So on that note, we did talk about EduProtocol. So I've got a couple things I want to talk about EduProtocol wise. Coming up in October, we're going to have 2 EduProtocol cadres. This will be our number 3 and number 4. I know it seems like our department loves cadres, whether you were in Chromebook cadre 58 or now the touch Chromebook cadres, however you want to describe them. But we're going to have 2 new groups, and they're going to be working with Kim Vogie. Kim Vogie is sort of like the number 2 when it comes to EduProtocols. And in fact, John would probably say she's probably number 1. So last year we had John Cripple come out, and he worked with 2 of the groups. This year we're going to have Kim Vogie not only work with 2 of the groups, but she's going to be keynoting our AV EdTech Summit, which we're bringing back this year as well.
What?
Yeah.
We're having an EdTech Summit?
Oh my God, I'm
EdTech
so
Summit.
excited.
I'm very
It'll be
excited
so
for
much
that.
fun.
It has
What a
been
fun way to learn.
5 years?
I was trying to think. I wrote down that it's been at least 4 years, if not 5.
2018 was our last. It was 2018.
That's crazy.
Was it 20? Did we do it
What was it,
2019?
I think it was the year that you were on your knee bike.
Yeah, when I broke my foot. That was 2018.
Yeah. So that was the last year that we had the AV EdTech Summit. So we are bringing it back. We're going to go small scale this year. We're not going to do a full-on day summit. We're going to do a half-day summit. We're going to do it at preliminary. It sounds like we're going to end up having it at Innovations Academy, and that'll be in the middle of October. So keep an eye out for that date. It sounds like it's going to be October 14th, right? In your
October
calendar.
14th.
Yeah, put that in your calendar right now, Jeri.
Yeah, I got it.
now.
I got it.
And so we have that coming on, and then on top
Saturday
of
morning.
Saturday morning, and it'll probably end up being Kim Vogie with one of the cadres, and then EdTech Summit, and then Kim Vogie again with another cadre. So it'd be a good opportunity to really get some good, and not only that, but we've got some guest speakers coming from outside the district, guest speakers inside the district.
Inside the district.
That's the part I'm excited about. So really good things happening with the AV EdTech Summit, and then on top of that, the ladies and I are working on getting the Propel Self-Paced PD coming back for its 3rd year. So if you don't know about the Self-Paced PD, or you're new to Palmdale School District, it's an opportunity to get professional development at your leisure. And so I know that seems like it's a loaded sentence, because you still have a time frame that you have to get it done in, but you get to do it on your time. So if you're at home and you know you got stuff to work on, you don't have to work on it that day. You don't need to show up to a PD. We have everything housed for you, and you can do it on your time frame. So that I'm really excited about, because we have some new things we're working on, and I can't wait. I can't wait. It's going to be a busy fall. Anything else, ladies? Jeri, you have anything else for the greater good?
No, just don't forget to have us in to, one-on-one or at your PLC, because we want to be there to brainstorm with you and listen to your needs and do some research and be helpful.
And usually on our first podcast of the season, which, by the way, this is season 5 of our podcast. Usually at this point we talk about, what we can do. And so Jeri just said we can do one-on-one with you as a teacher. We can co-teach with you, co-plan. We can come in and observe. Keep in mind, we're not there to be evaluative. We're there to work with you. We're teachers. We're just like you. Our day just looks a little bit different than yours, but we are there to help share that responsibility with you. And so have us come in and work with you. We love working. Small groups are always great. So PLCs work well. We'll do staff meetings, but it's not the best way to learn. But we would love to work with each and every one of you out there.
And knowing that you don't just have an hour with the tool and then you know it. A tech
Right.
tool that you want to help engage your students or get better feedback or whatever it is you're doing with that tool. It takes some time, and I know we don't use this stuff all the time. That's why we're here to kind of learn it and help, so that you don't have to spend hours figuring it all out by yourself.
So speaking of the different things that we as EdTech coaches do, one of the things is our weekly newsletter, What the Tech. We send it out every Friday, and all 3 of us, we each have our own page. Dan has a page, Jeri has a page, I have a page, but they're for everybody, not just the people at our specific sites. And on my page this week, I literally have an image of what you can do with your tech coach, how your tech coach can support you. So be sure to check that out. We also sometimes have contests. We sometimes have giveaways. And I'm not sure what day you're sending this out, Dan, but I have 2 people who have still not looked at last week's newsletter to know that they are prize winners.
Uh-oh.
So one person has claimed her wonderful prize, and it really is a grand prize. And there are 2 others who did not check. I don't think they've checked last week's What the Tech, or if they have, maybe they haven't had time to get back to me. Hopefully they'll get back to me before, I think, what did I say, the 7th? If not, on the 8th, I am raffling those 2 prizes off to new people.
Keep
they'll
in
be
mind,
excited.
there's very little reading involved in the newsletter.
Yeah, so just so everyone knows,
A lot of clicking.
A lot of clicking. But what the idea with the newsletter is that you guys are getting 6 quick tips, 6 tools to get, and maybe something to think about with every week.
6?
Yeah. There's 3, I guess.
3.
3 each. Yeah.
3 each, yeah.
3 each. I'll have to work
They're
on it.
just quick tips.
I'll have to go back and I'll go to the Touch Academy and I'll have the kindergarten teachers teaching me how to count again.
Image focused.
3 each, yeah. So you have 3 tools, 3 tips, and you also get 3 points to ponder. And so just something to think about, another way of looking at things, and just a great way for us to communicate with you. And my last thing is that I hope you guys all have a great start to your year, or have had a great start to your year, and hope it continues all the way through until Thanksgiving break. Are we already?
Are you counting down? No,
We're already looking at
counting
breaks.
down.
But we hope that you guys all have a great start to your year, and we can't wait to see you guys. And please reach out, stay safe. We can now stay dry because we don't have a tropical storm coming. So have a great rest of your day. We keep getting those emails about COVID, so make sure you guys are washing your hands and staying safe.
Probably just freak some people out right now.